Everybody, thanks for coming and joining our go-to meeting, public speaking. Our topic is ethics in public speaking. My name is Aaron Weber, and I'll be sharing with you our introduction. So, have you guys ever wondered how some public speakers manage to captivate their audience and subsequently finish their speech with an uncontrollable and deafening applause that rings in your ears days after their speech was given? And haven't you always wondered why other public speakers induce their audience into a sleeping coma? And when asked what you spoke about, the audience has zero recollection? Well, the difference between these two types of speakers is the incorporation of public speaking ethics. You may have a speech outline written by the public speaking gods and edited by and reviewed by the public speaking angels. You may have the confidence and poise to deliver the greatest speech of your lifetime and maybe even the history of time itself. But if you don't incorporate ethics in your speech, then you can kiss away all the fruits of your efforts. If you are too lazy to incorporate public speaking ethics in your speech, I can guarantee you your audience will be too lazy to listen to what you have to say. And I could condone this information from a narrative from my own personal life. So here's a real life example. A couple of weeks ago, I was actually sitting in my business forum class when a recruiter from a company came to speak. He stated a statistic that seemed a little ridiculous and outlandish. So immediately, me and my friends went on our laptops and we cross-referenced this statistic with information on the internet. So my friends immediately realized that this statistic was wrong, and this just turned us off to what the speaker was saying, and the speaker just immediately lost all his credibility, and we just realized the speaker failed to deliver an ethical and accurate speech. After realizing that his information was wrong, I did not care for anything what he had to say afterwards, and his message didn't resonate with me. So this just goes to show how important incorporating ethics in your public speech goes. So by incorporating public speaking ethics in your speech, your message will be effective, memorable, moral, and respectable. Ethics in public speaking is a relative and important topic to all audience members here, because each and every one of you is currently developing and refining your public speaking skills by taking public speaking in this course. By considering public speaking ethics, each of you will have the opportunity to reflect on how you can practice ethics in your own speeches. And by listening to the importance of ethics in public speaking in your future speeches, you will not get tripped up like that presenter in my business forum class by failing to comply with public speaking ethics. It is so important to realize the credibility of each one of us when giving you facts and narratives about the importance of ethics in public speaking. Each of us holds a deep understanding in public speaking ethics. We all have done extensive research on this topic when consolidating our information and have evaluated the cost-benefit analysis that comes with public speaking ethics in order to share with you an accurate and effective public speaking speech about ethics. We have all completed the academic integrity course at Rutgers, which makes sure we all have a strong sense of ethics. But most importantly, we could all serve as role models because we all have proven to practice ethical speaking strategies in our own speeches, including this one right here. Now finally, to give everyone the summary of our main points for our speech, we'll be discussing the importance as well as the tools that can be utilized when conducting a public speech in an ethical manner. We will discuss ways to be honest and not misleading. We will talk about avoiding plagiarism. We will talk about the legal consequences of plagiarism. We will talk about avoiding abusive language, respecting the audience's time, and ensuring that everyone's message is moral and ethical. And with that, I would like to hand off our next session to Pragi.
Alright, hey, thanks, Aaron. So I'll talk a bit more about what it means to be ethical in public speaking, and I'll also build on some of the points that Aaron has made so far. And so first, what we really have to do is we have to discuss about what it means to actually be ethical in public speaking, and moreover, what it means to have ethics. And as you know, ethics is a bit difficult to describe, being that it's different for everybody. And because of that, the definitions that we're going to use have to be explicitly stated. So, according to Welsh, the what it means to be ethical in public speaking relies upon the speaker's intent. This means that a speaker has to intend to be both honest and forthcoming with his audience, but moreover, they also have to make sure that the ends of their speech is not used for any unethical purposes. So, an example of this would be even if a speaker researched all of his facts well and represented them to the best of their ability, they are still considered unethical if the point of their speech is for the audience to go out and cause chaos or really any other sort of morally repugnant actions. So that is what we'll be defining as having ethics in public speaking. And there are also some more tips about how you can be ethical in public speaking. One is to respect the audience's time. This is something that we're all going to be doing today. We started about a minute late, but apart from that, we've respected your time so far. And not only does it mean you start on time, it also means we'll end on time, because you want to be respectful of your audience's time and the fact that they have many budget constraints. The other is to always respect your audience. As you know from the audience analysis surveys, everyone has different values and different ideas in mind, and it would not do to trample on anybody's ideas or to discredit them in any way. We'll also have some examples about this a little later on. And finally, the last most important part is to always research your information well. So this means making sure the information that you're presenting is cited well, it comes from a relevant source that's as close to free of bias as you can find, and is also from a reputable source. So keeping these things in mind, you can be ethical in public speaking. Now, another way, or actually an example of how not to be ethical in public speaking, is something that I'm sure all of you know of and have heard of over time, and it's to avoid plagiarism at all costs. Now, plagiarism we can strictly define, unlike ethics, and it's defined as the words or ideas of another person's as if they were your own. Now, this is in essays, in speeches, and everywhere. And not only does something like this have real-world ramifications, it can also lead to your audience members immediately disbelieving you, as Aaron spoke about with his professor in class. Now, I have another example, slightly different one, where Delaware Senator Joseph R. Biden Jr. Lost the primary nomination for president in 1988 because he plagiarized his speech from British party leader Neil Kinnock. Now, according to Frolics Online, this immediately led to a massive loss of trust within the senator, and he obviously lost the primary nomination for president, because not only did the audience lose trust in his statements, they also lost trust in him as a person, which, as you can imagine, is extremely important, especially when you're doing something like running for president. So keeping these things in mind, it's an extremely good idea to be ethical in public speaking because of all of these benefits, and also for some of the other things that we'll be talking about very shortly. At this point, I believe I've introduced the topic fairly well, and as I've done a lot of research and taken this course in public speaking and research ethics, as well as public speaking in general, I believe I'm pretty qualified when I'm speaking about this. After that, I'd like to pass this on to Jose, who will be taking it on from here.
Thank you, Brock. So my name is Jose Toribio. Like the rest of my co-presenters, I have also done extensive research on the ethics of public speaking. Today I'm going to walk you through the methods of conducting yourself ethically while public speaking. Please note that there are many additional means of being ethical while public speaking. However, I will only be addressing the following with you today. While you are conducting your speech, it is important for you to orally provide your sources for your audience and to reference to. Unless you're using a visual aid, there is no means for the audience to verify the legitimacy of your speech. Orally providing your references demonstrates to the audience that you have conducted research and dedicated the appropriate amount of time for your speech. It shows that you're well versed in your topic. Providing your sources essentially establishes your credibility. The words you use in your speech are just as important as the message you are trying to convey. The use of swear words in your speech will actually decrease your credibility. These words are abrasive and can potentially offend your audience members. By doing so, you can move the focus of your audience. While this is typically true for all public speakers, the exception to the rule is if the utilization of swear words has become part of your brand. For example, Junot Diaz, a critically acclaimed writer and professor at MIT, he frequently uses flagrant language in his speeches. His audiences are often heard laughing after his displays of colorful language. This is part of his brand or trademark. This does not work well for all instances and surely will not work well for someone embarking on their career as a public speaker. Along with the use of swear words, it is wise to avoid slandering any interest groups, for example, slandering race, religion, or political groups. As a public speaker, you will not know everything about your audience. To do this, you must be cautious in the way that you present your information so that you will not offend your audience members. Offending your audience members will result in the loss of interest in your speech and a loss of credibility. An ethical public speaker will be mindful of the effects of their words and may have on their audience. Take, for example, the controversy surrounding Representative Todd Akin after his claims that the female body has ways of terminating pregnancy in the event of legitimate rape. Not only is his claim false, it was also highly ignorant and offensive, and offended many women across the nation. This was probably the primary reason as to why he lost the majority of his appeal during his 2012 congressional election and lost his seat in the Senate. Lastly, and perhaps the most obvious thing, would be to avoid lying to your audience. Aaron touched upon this subject earlier. Typically, speakers lie in order to increase their own credibility. Well, I can make it seem more grandiose than it actually is, and thereby making it more convincing. However, the consequences for being caught in the act of lying are far worse than the benefits of getting away with it. At times, the public speaker may immediately lose credibility, or a lie in a previous speech could affect their credibility in future speeches. Take, for example, Bill Clinton, former president of the United States. He's infamously known for the Lewis scandal, where he lied under oath about having an affair. He later had to apologize in front of a grand jury and faced impeachment on obstruction of justice perjury. While it is highly improbable that most public speakers will face punishments as severe as Clinton, it's most certainly wise to avoid lying. So, I've now equipped most of you with the tools necessary to ethically conduct a speech, and I'm going to hand over to Daniel.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Daniel Lee, and just like my peers, I've also researched into the ethics of public speaking. Now I'll give you a few examples of public speaking in action and expand on what my peers have already mentioned. As mentioned earlier, one violation of ethics in public speaking is plagiarism. In public speaking, plagiarism can occur if a source is not properly cited in the speech. In Stephen Lucas' textbook, The Art of Public Speaking, he talks about incremental plagiarism. Incremental plagiarism is plagiarism that occurs when a small part of a speech is pirated. In order to avoid plagiarism, according to Lucas, you must attribute the words to that person that owns them. I personally have been reprimanded for plagiarizing before. For a class last semester, I had to type up a paper depicting the difference between jazz and blues. I had used some of my ideas from a paper I had written about jazz my freshman year here at Rutgers, and I even copied a few sentences. My professor emailed me saying that my paper had been red flagged for plagiarism and that it was unacceptable. Essentially, I had cheated on my paper without even realizing. Yes, I cheated by copying myself. Dr. Miguel Roy, a professor at St. John's University, wrote an article called Avoiding Plagiarism, Self-Plagiarism, and Other Questionable Writing Practices. In this article, he defines self-plagiarism. He says, self-plagiarism occurs when authors reuse their own previously written work or data in a new written work without letting the readers know that this material has appeared elsewhere. Essentially, this means that self-plagiarism can happen if a written idea has been rewritten and the reader isn't informed so. Yes, they were still my own ideas, excuse me, but they weren't my original ideas. Because I had already submitted these ideas previously, I could not use them again without properly referencing myself. I didn't reference myself at all in my submitted paper, and I should have been absolutely penalized for it. But I explained to my professor that I had no idea, and he accepted my excuse. I just had to redo it, Simon. Another example of ethical behavior is checking on the language and tone of your speech. Avoiding abusive language is key in public speaking. Language that can offend or harm anyone in the audience is incredibly unethical. Stephen Lucas says this, not only does it demean the dignity of the groups or individuals being attacked, but it also undermines the right of all groups in the U.S. to be fairly heard. This shows that choosing the right language for a public speech can lead to an ethical speech. We should always make sure our speeches are sensitive to all groups of people and anyone that comes from a different type of culture. By offending your audience, you will either lose their attention or you might even gain their attention. You would lose their attention because they will be turned off to anything you might say further. You might gain their attention in a way that might provoke some harmful or ill feelings. Neither of the two are healthy forms of attention. They will not garner a good audience response to your speech. It is important to review a speech and make sure it is ethically okay. Again, Stephen Lucas in his textbook says this, but you will also face moments of ethical decision. When those moments arrive, don't simply brush them aside and go on your way. We must always review our speeches in order to make sure they are ethical. As long as you review your speech beforehand while keeping these tips in mind, you should be good to go. I believe this review goes hand in hand with the audience analysis that we have had to do for our previous speeches. Being sure of who is in your audience will help you to choose your words carefully and avoid offending any individual or group of people. To offend people or to hurt anyone with your words is probably one of the worst things you can do, and we definitely want to avoid that in our public speeches. Now you know some examples of ethics in public speaking, and I hope that you'll consider using them in your speeches from now on. And now we'll move on to the conclusion, which will be given by Mike Tran.
Hello, my name is Michael Tran, and I will be doing the conclusion. I'm extremely nervous, so I just wanted to kind of somewhat break the ice with like a little wave here and there. But to summarize the three main points that my colleagues have brought, the ethics of public speaking are so dynamic that it will be impossible to define them with just one definition. When delivering a speech, the speaker's content and their meaning must be honest and forthcoming. The consequences of lying or engaging in unethical speech practices can cause the speaker to lose credibility or sometimes their career. A great example that my colleague has presented earlier was seen in the Senator Joseph R. Biden Jr.'s failure in obtaining a presidential bid. During one of his speeches, the Senator Biden plagiarized a speech from Neil Kinnock, the leader of the British Labour Party. This unethical use of plagiarism cost Senator Biden his chance at advancing in his career. Plagiarism is considered unethical because of its definition. Plagiarism is a deliberate attempt on the behalf of the speaker to represent another's idea or words as their own. His unethical choice of words led the people to lose confidence in him, and this is why we stress that you must be ethical when giving public speeches. The loss in confidence could have easily been avoided if he had given credit to the British Labour Party's leader. Another rule to note in ethics of public speaking is that one must be ethical when choosing words. because you have to keep your audience in mind. Understanding the power of your words and the different contexts they hold can help clarify your point and avoid any bias to your message. The audience can vary from different cultures to different expertise, so it is important to be ethical in any circumstances. A good rule of thumb in making sure you review your speech is reviewing your speech and understanding your word choice, which will help clarify your message. This will prevent wording that may confuse the audience or misinform them. This will also make sure that the facts that you are stating are actually true. We are all human and we make mistakes. Now you know how complicated ethics in public speaking really is, but we hope that you also know how important it is to speak ethical. The next time you have to give a speech, take a look around. You most likely won't know every person that you're speaking to. You most likely won't know where every person is from and how they grew up. And you most likely won't know the demographics for the entire audience. But what you do know is the importance of giving an ethical speech and how to do it and focusing on ethics in your speech is keeping your message will be more memorial and well accepted. I'm sorry about my pronunciation. I'm kind of nervous. Camera. So the reason why I chose the images that I chose on this particular picture is because of so many stipulation of ethics. And I wanted you guys to know it's not good to give half truths, even if you're trying to sell something. So continue on to the next slide. Thank you for your attention. Do you have any questions?
All right. Thanks, everybody. Feel free to type the questions on the chat if you'd like, or speak them out loud.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. It's over.
Well,
Oh wait,
that's
is
all.
recording over? Is recording over?